Hi guys and gals, this is Tim with Tactical Walls, and today I'm going to be going over the custom cutting of the foam insert for your 1242 and 825 concealment shelves. So as you can see in front of me here, I've got the foam insert already laid out the way I'd like to have my gear inside the shelf when it's stored. And some of the items I've gone ahead and already pre-cut and installed, and a couple of the others here, like you see the pistol and the rifle, we're going to be doing the custom cut, and I'm going to be just showing you a few simple methods with some simple small blades how to do this. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so the first tip in cutting the foam, and it may or may not work for you, my personal preference is to just use a very simple utility razor blade, and this is what I'll do all the cutting here with. Another thing that you may want to consider is how deep into the foam do you want to set your components. You can cut all the way through the foam if you'd like and have these really recessed down in there. In this particular case, I think I've got this magazine sunk about halfway. Just a little bit of tension on it. And really, this is very important. The cleaner you make your cuts and the tighter that you make them to the edge, whether it be on the slide here, on the back of the grip, the closer you get these, the tighter everything will fit. The wider they are, the sloppier it is, the less loose fit it will be. So you'll want to take great care when cutting to cut a nice fine line for it to fit. And remember, you can always take away more foam. So if you cut it and it's too tight, you can shave away a little bit more and a little bit more until it fits just right. But if you take too much away at once, then you got to start all over, and nobody wants to do that. Another really important thing to consider and remember is you may mess up. So it's okay if you slip and get a cut. I've just cut this foam here, and it's not a big deal. It's right here, you can see it. But the foam will hide a lot of your mistakes. But, try not to make too many mistakes. You try to keep a nice clean cut for a better fit. So here we go. I'm going to go ahead and trace this rifle, and you want to consider a few things. One, I'm going to do my best not to sink the barrel. So I'm going to avoid even cutting around the barrel area. I'm going to have the rail sunk down into a pocket. I'm going to have the magazine, I'm going to have the whole lower, I'm going to have the buttstock all sunk slightly into a pocket, but I'm going to keep it so that the barrel isn't exactly sunk down in there. So for my first cut on the rifle, I'm just going to start on a nice good reference point about right here. Take my blade, and I'm just going to do a very light cut at first. I'm only going in there about 1/2 inch deep. I go directly from the knife to the foam. You could just as easily trace it with a black or silver Sharpie marker. Just remember that if you're going to do that, and if you get a little sloppy, it's going to not look so good when you're done. So that's why I prefer to just go directly with the blade. Now that I've got both outlines traced, I'm going to go ahead and remove the rifle here and the pistol. And I've actually got them both cut in there, and you can't see anything, but I promise you I've got my cuts here for my rail, my mag well, the grip, all the way around the stock. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and take my razor and just kind of connect the dots a little bit, and I'm going to draw a grid just from what would be, the bottom and what is the top, here where the sight post is. I'm just going to draw like a striped grid. Just kind of use your fingers to pull a layer out of your way. and just cut a nice little line. Now right here is going to be for my trigger on the pistol, and I don't want to cut too much into that just yet. That's the only spot I want to take a little bit of really nice care in. So I'll avoid cutting my grid through there so much. Just where that trigger window is. But I'll go ahead and grid all this out into a bunch of little pieces, and that'll make it easier for cutting and removing to the depth that I want, the appropriate depth for the pistol. And I'll just keep fitting until I get a depth that I feel is adequate for what I'm looking for. Now you can see everything is kind of gridded out. Mess it up there so you can kind of get a good look at that. I can go back in here now, and I can, one by one, you can just yank them out if you really want. It's tough to control exactly how deep of a pocket you're getting if you do that. So it works. It's one way to do it, and it just depends on how deep you did your initial cut and how big your grid is and how uniform it'll look. The tighter and the smaller your grid, the more uniform that pocket's going to be. But you can go ahead and just start removing each of these little pieces, and you can go ahead and pull them all out. You know, if you want, you can get in there and just pluck all of these out. And what I was doing with here by the trigger, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. Watch your fingers. So what I'm doing here with the trigger, grab the pistol and I'll show you. This is going to be set down in the pocket just slightly, and I want to have the trigger, but I don't want it to look quite like this through this window. I want it to have a nice clean little presentation. So I'm going to take a little bit more care just in this area to get my blade in here and try to remove where I'll have a nice clean, if you can see that, nice clean window. So I got the pistol done, and I've got all my foam cut, and as you can see where I was talking about taking it very easy in the trigger area, where this window here, you just want it to look a lot more uniform like it is here. That's why I went in there and took a very careful sideways cut when I removed that foam. And you can see I've got this particular pistol sunk right up to the sight post, right mid-barrel, so it's sunk roughly halfway into the foam. And that's a personal preference. Obviously, the further in you go, the more foam is holding it in place, and the further out you go, the less foam is holding it, and the more likely you will be to have something falling out, and you don't want that. So I'd say definitely you want to go at least, minimum halfway is what, I'd say. But I think that gives a great presentation, and it's got a pretty good grip of it in there. So with that one done, I'm going to go ahead and move on to my rifle here. You see where I'm starting. My front sight folded down. I've got my mag well again. And so I'm going to just take the same process and repeat over here, just following, my grid. Just kind of get a pinch, see where everything's at, where I want to start and stop my cut, and do a series of grids. And just grid it the whole way up as I go. The smaller you make your grid, the more uniform, and they'll pull at whatever depth you want. You can go in there and you can get a really, really deep pinch and yank it out, or you can take a much shallower pinch. But I'm just going to go ahead and follow my grid right on up here, and just do the same thing with the rifle that I had just done with the handgun, and we'll get a nice clean presentation for the rifle as well. So we've got all of our foam cut, and I've taken everything out of it, and when we get it all cut, it looks something like this. And like I said, the more time you take in cutting it out, the nicer your end product will look. So what we're going to do now is get ready to put it in the shelf, and you'll notice another thing I've done, just another little tip, it'll help you. Our shelf has these pneumatic struts to help it lower, and I'm going to go ahead and cut a clearance for that, just so that the foam comfortably sits right over the strut. So I've cut clearance on both ends. And we've got our sticky backer, and we're going to go ahead and peel this off and install it into the shelf. So you want to take care in doing this
You want to get a nice clean placement, and you might want to do a couple dry runs prior to actually peeling the back off, because as you can see, it's quite tacky. So we've got our notch made, and I'm going to go ahead and just start in one corner, going off the bracket. Come clean across the other side, and just really get it pushed on there good. And we've got our foam installed here. Now that we've got our foam cut and we've got the backing peeled off and installed in the shelf, you can see we've got everything loaded in here. And what you get when you take your time is a nice clean result. And more importantly, not only does it present well and is it clean, but it's also very secure. So the more time you take in making sure you've done a nice clean job of cutting, the more secure your items inside the case will be. And that's very important for obvious safety purposes. And with safety in mind, a few more things that I really want to point out is anytime that you're handling your firearms, you're placing them in or taking them out of the unit, just try to avoid putting your finger in the trigger guard area and just pull from elsewhere on the item that you're placing in or taking out. That also in mind, we ask at Tactical Walls that you never store your firearms chambered. This is Tim at Tactical Walls, and I'd like to say thank you and God bless.